that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 374th edition of Energy Week. This is a report of news in energy and climate change starting the 28th of May, running up to the 3rd of July, and we are reporting this on the morning of the 4th of July. This is Energy Week with George Harvey, me, and the amazing Tom Fennell.
In the flesh.
In the flesh. And we are both working from home because of the coronavirus by telephone. I'm sorry if the sound is not as good as it should be, but you know we're chugging along here. Every day I get up and go to the internet and find the news on energy and climate change. It goes up to my blog, which is geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com, and the script, the thing I call a script that Tom and I work from, is available at a blog site. And if you watch this at BCTV, or if you are at YouTube or wherever, you should have that blog site available to you. It's called energyweeknews.wordpress.com with a date. It might come up as a bit.ly link. And also, the various sites should have a copy of that script that you can download. Anyway.
Well, some of these sites are well worth looking at. And as a matter of fact, we're going to hit one or two today that are almost mandatory.
I would think so. You know, we've got some really interesting stuff going on in the world today. As I said, we're going to start on the 28th of May. If you go to any of these blogs, there are links to the original articles, and we will start with a painting from the 19th century by Frederick Edwin Church of icebergs.
And that's what it's called. Interesting painting. Take a look in the foreground, almost to the center. There's a ship there, a shipwreck in that picture.
I think that's correct, yeah.
And you can see the mast has been knocked over.
Yes. This is kind of a romantic thing that, you know, a person would use to add interest to.
Well, this guy Church was rather well known in his time. As a matter of fact, he was the best known landscape painter in the middle 1800s.
I believe it. I've looked at his work. There's a lot of it, and it's a lot of it.
This particular article has a lot of his art there, and it's worth seeing.
Yes, it is.
It's good art.
This is from the BBC, by the way.
There's a picture on this. Yeah, it is. It is from this website. There's a picture of what's called Ice Watch, and it's more recent. It's not the 1860s. And what it is more than 24 blocks of ice that had already been lost from Greenland's ice sheet were placed in London and left to melt.
Yes.
As an exhibition, a display.
Yeah, and
the ice is a metaphor for the damage that humans have inflicted on the Earth.
Yeah. What do you got for a title for the article, Tom?
Well, how about that? The climate change clues hidden in art history.
As scientists, policymakers, and members of the public attempt to make sense of the climate crisis, art historians are finding clues about how the relationship with nature has changed, about past and present society's ideas of climate, and even about the physical changes of the planet.
So as I said, this is one of the ones that's well worth seeing.
It is, and because
of the website.
Yeah, largely because of the pictures.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Without the pictures, it's nothing.
Okay.
Well, we got an interesting picture here coming up of a coal loading facility.
Yeah, this is a sea of coal with a big bulldozer right in the middle of it, and the bulldozer looks a little bigger than an ant, but it looks pretty small in this picture. And this is from Scientific American.
It is that, and it says coal's decline continues, with 13 plant closures announced in 2020. I think we're going to touch base on this more than once in this episode.
It just goes on and on and on. Power companies have announced plans to close 13 coal plants this year, according to an E&E News review of federal data and companies' closure plans. 2 other plants will be converted to natural gas. Burning coal is no longer economically sound.
Repeat that sentence because it's valid.
Burning coal is no longer economically sound. And that's true even if the coal plants have been paid down and are old and, there isn't any new work that has to be done on them. It's just not economical to burn coal. It's too expensive.
Well, right now, in some circumstances, and it's a lot of circumstances, burning coal is more expensive than solar, even if you got the coal for nothing.
Yes, or if you have to build new solar to do it. Basically what we're at, the situation that we're in is that the utilities are finding that it's cheaper to replace the coal plants than it is to use them.
And then one other thing that's happening is kind of a vicious circle. Coal plants are running less, and the less you run it, the higher the cost per unit energy.
Yeah, and because those plants are designed specifically to run flat out all the time, reducing their output is not just expensive, it's
costly.
Really expensive.
Yep, absolutely.
And we're going to follow this with another article. Should we go into that?
Well, we'll get to it eventually. Well, I guess the next one coming up is very closely related. It's called Renewables, Crushing Coal. And it won already 100 days this year.
Yes, and this is from Clean Technica, and we have a picture here of a wind farm.
Is that what that is?
That's what that is. I recognize those turbines. I know what turbines look like. The U.S. has seen year-to-date performance for renewables that is dramatically above any previous years. Renewables are on a streak going on right now, overtaking coal for production of electricity on a daily basis for 100 days so far this year and for 60 days in a row.
Well, in 2019, the best day saw renewables generating 50% more electricity than coal.
Yeah.
And in 2020, we've seen as high as 96% more.
Yeah.
Even more than last year.
Yeah, and the thing that I find interesting about this is that a lot of those days when renewables were beating coal were days in the winter, which is one of coal's 2 important times.
That's an interesting observation.
Yeah, and I don't know what I think that coal is doomed. There's no question about it.
Well, in 2008, coal supplied half of the country's electricity.
Yes.
And by last year, it's down to less than a quarter.
Well.
And as we will talk about, I think a little bit later, renewables will pass coal on an annual basis this year.
This year. And, the prediction at the end of last year was that it would happen next year, so that it would happen in 2021.
Well, it's happening quicker.
But it's happening quicker. A lot of that is because of the coronavirus, which is having a much more profound effect on coal than it is on renewable energy.
That's an interesting observation.
Yeah.
That is true. Absolutely.
So we're up to Friday, May 29th, with another item from Clean Technica.
And we got a picture of a tanker, and I'll touch base on a couple of notes about that tanker.
This tanker is really funny.
When we get to it here.
Read the title, Tom.
Mission created to promote zero-energy emission electric vehicles.
7 Japanese companies have joined forces to launch a zero-emission electric vessel consortium, the E5 consortium. 3 of them, Asahi Tanker, XNO Yamamitsu Corporation, and Mitsubishi Corporation, recently built the world's first electric ocean vessel, the E5 tanker. I don't know that this is really the first electric ocean vessel, but I'm sure that it's the first electric ocean tanker.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is right there. Well, this isn't really, they call it an ocean tanker, and it operates in the ocean, but it's really a coastal tanker. This is small. This only 200 feet long.
Yes,
and its purpose is to offload oil from a supertanker and bring it closer to shore or directly to a ship like a cruise ship.
So this is basically what is called a lighter, which means
a lighter, a shuttle tanker, something like that. Absolutely.
It would probably be useful for, say, Massachusetts to deliver oil to Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket or something like that. But
these large super tankers can't get into a lot of places. I mean, they're pretty big. Let's give you a quick rundown on this. This is 200 feet long.
Yeah.
A U.S. Navy aircraft carrier is 1,000 feet long.
Yeah.
A cruise ship a little larger than that, 1,200. A container ship is a little larger than that, 1,300. And an oil super tanker is about 1,500 feet.
And one of the things that's interesting is this tanker is 499 tons, but what they call the ultra super tanker, those things actually go up over 500,000 tons. So they're 1,000 times as big as this. And
there's an interesting 3.5-minute video of this ship in operation, and it can go in any direction. It can sail sideways. I mean, literally, it can. It does that to get in where it's got to get into.
Well, of course. I mean, this is what they can do now. They've got directional jets. There are a lot of ships that'll sail sideways now. Not very fast, though.
Well, the E5 has a goal of establishing new ocean shipping infrastructure services to develop and commercialize zero-emission vehicles.
Right.
And that's what this article is really all about.
Right. Okay.
Let's move along here. We're moving to the Antarctica.
With a view of a research ship. And this is from CNN.
A little bit of ice.
A little bit of ice.
Antarctic ice sheets capable of much faster melting than we thought. That's not good news.
No, it's not. Antarctic ice sheets retreated at rates of up to 50 meters a day. That's 164 feet at the end of the last ice age. Researchers have found.
Almost faster than you can walk.
Well, no, I'm not. If you're old enough, maybe. But they warn that we could soon see similar levels of ice retreat should climate change carry on weakening ice shelves in coming decades.
There's huge implications here for global sea levels.
Yeah, huge. And NOAA is saying also these sea levels are going to rise faster, and this is not good. This is not a good time to buy seaside property, I think.
Well, you get it cheap in some spots.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. You want to go on, Tom?
Yeah, let's move along. Where you see a couple of interesting buses here.
Yeah, this is an interesting picture. I want to point out there are overhead lines in this picture.
I'm looking at that, and they're dual lines.
And they have tracks below them. So
I looked at that too.
There's an electric trolley that's running through this area.
Well, trolleys usually need one wire. They got electric buses in Boston.
Yes.
And they run with wires.
Yeah.
And they got two wires like that. It wouldn't surprise me that over the years they've had trolleys running there. They've had electric buses with pantographs on them. And this is the latest iteration. These are battery-powered.
Right. But the thing that's interesting to me about those overhead lines is if they can change entirely from trolleys that are powered with overhead lines to vehicles, it could be trolleys, but certainly buses that are powered by batteries, those overhead lines are going to come down.
They will.
That picture would be a lot prettier without them.
I think.
Yeah, anyway, this is an item from Clean Technica. You got a title?
The city of Krakow orders 50 electric buses.
Yeah, in Poland, the city of Krakow has decided to order 50 Solaris Urbino 18 electric buses to help clean up its air and stop global warming. The new 50 buses will be added to an existing fleet of 28 Solaris electric buses The order, including 50 bus charging stations, is to be delivered this year. These buses are big, by the way. Look at that. That's not.
Well, they're a bus and a half there.
Yeah, this is an
Articulated.
articulated bus, and
they're permanently attached.
Yeah, so it's probably twice as big as the mover buses that run through Brattleboro and the local buses.
Oh, easily twice as big.
Yeah.
These buses carry 140 passengers.
Okay.
And they can be recharged by means of a roof-mounted pantograph, which would imply they're recharging from those cables or something like that,
Yeah.
or from a plug-in.
Which means that if they have recharging places at stations that the bus stops at that can be reached by that pantograph, they can pull in.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's handy.
They're talking about $40 million here, by the way. These guys aren't playing around.
Yeah. And, by the way, there was another order that was even bigger that I saw today that came from the city of Halifax, Nova Scotia. I think they ordered 200 buses.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Canada's a little bit ahead of us and stuff like that.
Yes, there are a lot of people in this world who are ahead of the United States right now.
Well, right now, Toronto's got a wonderful public transportation system.
Well, this has been going on for a long time, Tom. When I was in college in the 1960s, I was in New York City, and I was traveling on the
Myrtle Avenue L.
Subways, and those trains like the AA train and so forth. The local trains, a lot of them, the sides of them were just solid graffiti. The stations were not in good shape. The trains were not in good shape. A lot of things were old. The Myrtle Avenue L was running in those days. It was an elevated train, and it looked like it might have been designed in the 1890s.
Probably was.
And I had been in Europe. I'd seen European transportation, and I knew that the Europeans were way ahead of us. And that is a situation that has got worse.
I think so.
In my opinion. Anyway, we have an item. Should we move on to the next one?
Yeah, we'll move on to one coming up from Forbes.
Yeah, and this has a picture of a wind farm. By golly, those are turbines too.
I guess that's fog, huh?
That's fog. Yeah, I used to live on a mountaintop in New Hampshire, and I would see a lot of that kind of thing where the entire Connecticut River Valley would be full of fog.
Right, exactly.
And then mountains would be sticking up from it. It was really quite impressive. And when the sun came up, it was like having a huge, huge pillow laid out from you to the horizon with mountains here and there. It was really quite beautiful. Anyway, this is from Forbes, as you said. And you want to read a title? Or?
Yeah, just how good an investment is renewable energy. New study reveals all.
Renewable energy investments deliver massively better returns than fossil fuels in the United States, the UK, and Europe, according to analysis. Despite this, the total volume of investment is still nowhere near what will be required to mitigate climate change.
Well, from the article, the study found renewables investments in Germany and France are yielding returns of 180% over a 5-year period, compared with a 20% loss for fossil fuels.
You want to sit down with me, Tom, and we'll discuss our investment portfolios?
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
I got a roll of quarters.
What? Yeah. I had a roll of quarters once. I went to a store, and I don't remember the list of things that I bought with it, but...
Them days is gone forever.
Well, what had happened, this was like 1980, whenever it was that the price of silver went through the roof, and I was selling those quarters for something like, I'm gonna say that it was like close to $5 each.
I was just gonna say they were going for about $5 a piece.
And it was like, these were quarters, but they were when I was a kid, when you were a kid, we could walk into a bank, ask for a silver dollar, and we'd get a dollar made of silver. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Should we go on?
I think we should. We're coming up here to Saturday, May 30th. There's an interesting picture of an airplane.
Yep, and this is from CNBC. And that is an electric Cessna. Yes, it is an interesting airplane. What do you got for a title?
The world's largest all-electric commercial aircraft has completed its first flight. Now, that particular airplane is based upon a conventional propeller-driven, internal combustion airplane that's been operating very, very well for a long time.
Yes.
It's a workhorse, but
yes.
This is the first time it's been electrified.
Yes. When I saw that, I wondered if anybody would pull out any DC-3s and electrify them.
Any what?
DC-3.
Oh.
It flew on a DC-3.
It's just not much smaller than a DC-3, really.
Yeah, well, it's smaller.
It's format, but its carrying capacity is big.
Yes. The DC-3 was, I actually flew on a DC-3 in 1962, and the last time I looked, they were still in use, and that was probably 5 years ago. These are things that go back to the Second World War. Anyway, did you read the title? I think you did. So I'll read the...
I'm not sure that I did, but I'll do it again.
Okay, do it again.
The world's largest all-electric commercial aircraft has completed its first flight.
The largest all-electric commercial aircraft completed its maiden flight. The Cessna 208B Grand Caravan was flown at Moses Lake, Washington, and used a 750 horsepower all-electric developed by Magnix, a company based in Redmond, Washington. The idea of a 750 horsepower motor being put into an aircraft just strikes me as wild.
Well, we've taken a look at that, and they're making them a lot smaller than they used to.
They sure are. They got super magnets now.
Well, from the article, the iconic Caravan, this plane, has been a workhorse of industry, moving people and transporting goods on short routes for decades. So This is another step on the road to operating these aircraft at a fraction of the cost with zero emissions and from and to smaller airports. So it's an old-fashioned plane, but it's still significant and it's still quite useful.
Yeah, they're still making this particular model.
Definitely. Oh yeah.
An important thing that you just said was that it was at lower cost.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of this, when you think about aircraft, if you know people who have flown in airplanes, of their own and things like that, they constantly talk about engine checks that come up after a certain number of hours.
Exactly. You're sort of talking about what's going on around in my head.
Yeah, and these aircraft are not cheap. They really are not.
They're much more reliable, and they cost a lot less to operate.
Yes, these electric aircraft, by comparison to internal combustion aircraft, are cheap, and yes, as you said, they're a lot more reliable.
As are the automobiles.
As are the automobiles. As are the buses. The last time I looked, an electric bus, which is in some ways comparable to this, cost 150% of a diesel-powered bus, but the difference in maintenance costs and fuel costs was so great that difference was paid back in 4.5 years. So,
that makes sense. Yep.
Yep. Okay, should we move on?
Yeah, you got another picture of, guess what? Turbines.
Is that what those are? Here, I thought they were children's whirligigs. Our engineering magazine is responsible for this particular.
It is that, right. U.S. renewable energy consumption surpasses.
You there? You want to read that again, Tom? There was an interference. U.S.
renewable energy consumption surpasses coal for the first time in over 130 years.
In 2019, U.S. annual energy consumption from renewable resources exceeded consumption of energy from coal for the first time since 1885, according to the U.S. Energy Administration's monthly energy review.
Well, wind is now the most used source of renewable energy for electricity generation in the United States.
Right. And that's why we've got wind turbines up on this. But This is, again, the decline of coal, and the decline of coal is extremely rapid, and it's inexorable. It's just something.
I think it's much faster than anybody would have predicted a couple of years ago.
Oh, much, I think. Well, you and I think, were predicting that it would go faster than the predictions that other people were making.
I think so. That was a little bit of nostalgia, maybe.
Yeah, we can pat ourselves on the back, and if we're wrong, then we get pats anyway. So our next item is from oilprice.com, unless you've got more from that.
No, I just don't have a note that it's from oilprice.com. But that's
okay. It's a picture of solar panels we see. And
it's what it looks like to me.
I did not get any indication of where those solar panels are located, so I'm sorry to say I don't know.
I think I did, and I think they're in France.
Okay. Somehow that doesn't look like any part of France I've ever been in. But there are a lot of parts of France I've never been in. So
well, France borders Spain with the Pyrenees. So.
You're absolutely right.
And then it's Switzerland on the other side. So
yes,
there's some high levels in France. Well, let's move along here. Huge natural gas company looks to power operations with solar energy. That's kind of ironic, isn't it?
I guess it's ironic. U.S. natural gas processing and transmission firm Williams is looking to develop solar installations on land it owns close to existing facilities to power its operations with electricity from solar energy. Williams owns and operates about 30,000 miles of pipelines.
This is a big company. They handle about a third of the natural gas in the United States.
Yeah, and this is, it's a company that most of us have never heard of, so
they keep a low profile, but they're finding it more advantageous to use solar to to operate their own facilities than to use their own gas. Which I guess they want to sell, That's
it's kind of like that tanker what is the tanker that we just saw, the little tanker,
the
500-ton tanker. It's powered by electricity, but what is it carrying? Is it carrying oil?
Carrying oil.
Is this ironic?
It is.
I will repeat something I said a few weeks ago on this show. I was working in a patent office in Washington D.C., and I told one of the attorneys that if I ever got rich, I was going to fulfill dreams in 3 fields simultaneously. One was technology, one was ships in the sea, and the third was music. And he said, "What would you do?" And I said, not that I would actually do this, I would build a nuclear-powered collier. Now, a collier is a ship that carries coal.
Oh, yep.
And he laughed at this. And he said, what does that have to do with music? And I said it would be called the Cole Porter. But
okay.
And for anybody who doesn't know, Cole Porter is one of the really great composers of the 20th century.
Of modern times, yes.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, move along. We got an interesting picture here of what they call a bug hotel.
Yes, indeed. How many people would be able to identify what that was? Okay, and this is
like a wood pile for wood-burning stove, huh?
Well, yeah, it looks like somebody's done something for his wood-burning stove, but it isn't. And, it's interesting, if you look at those pieces of wood, they all have holes drilled in them.
By the bugs?
Yeah. No, I think they were probably, I would bet they were drilled by drills to let the bugs in. But nevertheless, however that happened, this came from Clean Technica.
And it's about Audi. Audi, the car?
Yeah.
Their new Mission Zero, protecting natural habits and biodiversity. They seem to be getting serious about this.
I think they are. Audi has been a member of the Biodiversity in Good Company initiative for 5 years. Volkswagen Group has numerous projects to preserve biodiversity at Audi sites. The Audi Environmental Foundation has plans to expand that commitment to benefit biodiversity.
We're addressing 4 action areas in this program: decarbonization, economical water use, resource efficiency, and preservation of biodiversity.
Yeah, and in order to be able
to do some good stuff.
Yes, and in order to be able to really do that and do it right, they're going to have to stop building internal combustion cars. Which
Well, that's
they
going to
will.
happen naturally anyhow, just because it makes more sense.
Yes.
Economics.
Absolutely.
To misquote Bill Clinton, it's the economy, stupid.
Yes, right.
It's economics, stupid.
Yes. Okay, should we go?
Yeah, we got an interesting picture of some vegetable plots.
Yeah, this is a vegetable garden in Thailand, I think.
I think it is. It looks nice.
Isn't it? Nice looking.
It's called New Wave Urban Farming. And it is from Thailand.
Yeah. People continue to lose their jobs amid pandemic, raising concerns about whether farmers and growers in the production chain can still get their supplies to market. The question also arises as to whether consumers can afford to buy them. Some people have been developing ideas to address food security. And, this brings us back again to the idea of a victory garden, which is a term that I've been seeing a lot more in the news than I had for years, possibly forever.
Well, I'll mention just quickly what a victory garden was. During World War II, they were encouraging people to grow their own energy. They called them victory gardens.
Yeah, to grow their own vegetables.
Grow their own vegetables, I'm sorry. And from this article in Bangkok, we have sunlight, we have water, we have lots of space.
Yes.
Growing vegetables is better than growing grass. It's time to rethink our way of producing food.
I think that's right, yeah. And I think we mentioned Victory Gardens in a recent show, and I mentioned the fact that there is a town in New Jersey called Victory Gardens.
Yeah, there is.
And, this was, I was watching, a documentary about the Second World War recently, and they went into the Victory Gardens there, too. And one of the things that I've been seeing, interestingly, in the news is that the number of people filing for unemployment in the United States just keeps
astronomical.
It's 40-some-odd million. And
astronomical.
At the same time, I'm seeing news articles about the fact that farmers need workers, and they can't get them. They can't get anybody who's willing to go out on the farm and work.
Well, it's hard work.
Farming is hard work, but people who love farming. There's just no question about it. Did you ever work on a farm, Tom?
Never did.
I did. And the farm that I worked at was owned by one of the wealthiest women in the country, as a matter of fact. But it was still a farm, and we weeded in the vegetable garden, and we took care of chickens, and we put hay in the barns and stuff like that. And throwing a bale of hay up onto a truck, you start doing that all morning, you're gonna build some muscles.
I would say.
Yeah, those bales. A good bale of hay weighed 40 or 45 pounds. This, of course, is a bale that looks like a brick, not the ones that are rolled up and you put one of them on.
Yeah, right. Old-fashioned bales.
What?
They're the old-fashioned bales.
These are the old-fashioned bales, yeah.
Well, let's move along here. We got a nice picture of the Empire State Building.
Is that what that is? I thought it was a wind turbine.
Well, they might put one on the roof one of these days. Who knows?
Yeah,
the longest time, almost all of my young life, that was the largest building in the world. Yes,
mine too. I think you must have lived about the same time I did, Tom.
Something like that.
We're up to Monday, the 1st of June, and this is an item from Clean Technica.
And it says the Empire State Building reduces carbon emissions by 40% with energy-saving upgrades.
When it was built during the Depression, the Empire State Building projected a message of hope by keeping every room lighted for all to see. Today, the energy retrofits in the building have reduced its emissions enough to show new hope for the future.
They're serious about this. They're doing about everything they can to save energy.
Yeah, they're going to have to do more though. 40% isn't enough, unfortunately. But they're in the middle of everything, and they have a lot that they might be able to do. We're seeing solar panels that are being built that double as window panes, and there's a lot of windows on that building.
That's going to make a big change.
I think it is, yeah.
I mean, it's going to take a while for this stuff to filter down, but we're here. We're operating at the leading edge of technology, what we're talking about.
Yes.
Well, one of the interesting things is what the Empire State Building is doing is serving as a model for other large buildings in the city, of which there are many.
Yes, that's true. And a 40% reduction is actually impressive when you consider, here's a building.
Oh, absolutely.
It was, what was it, built 85 years ago?
It was built in the 30s.
Yeah, before I was born.
30.
Okay, should we go on?
I think so.
We have an item from PV Magazine USA and a picture of rooftop solar panels in Hawaii.
Is that what that is?
I think that's what it is. Either that or it's wind turbines.
Well, it's not Vermont.
I think it's not Vermont. Yeah.
Cities could generate hundreds of times more solar power than they do today. Oh, absolutely.
These people should talk to the people who run the Empire State Building. While applauding the rooftop solar progress of dozens of cities, a report from Environment Texas offers policy options for further progress. Per capita solar leaders are Honolulu, San Diego, Albuquerque, San Jose, and Burlington, Vermont.
Yeah, that surprised me.
Didn't surprise me.
You're well aware that they're doing a lot of solar up there?
Yeah. People
What's the name of that guy that lives up that way that's big in solar?
Yeah. My parents, by the way, used to live in Honolulu.
Uh-huh.
And they had to leave because of mean people who were there, who came by.
You mean the Japanese?
Yes.
Yeah.
My father was in the
Navy.
Naval officer for the entire war, beginning to end. He had 13 battle stars.
Wow.
He was on the island of Corregidor the day before the Marines landed. Can you believe that?
Yeah. I can, but that's still something.
Yeah.
Yeah, he saw action, that's for sure.
He saw the battleship Fuso sunk, and he said it was one of the most pathetic sights he'd ever seen because the Japanese had no idea where their enemy was. So they trained their guns out randomly and fired.
No kidding.
No kidding.
Wow.
I mean, that's desperate. That's desperate. Anyhow, let's not dwell on that. You got more on cities?
Well, just a quick rundown. It's just a statistic. 26 U.S. cities have at least 50 watts of PV per capita.
50 watts of PV per capita.
And Burlington, obviously, is one of them.
Burlington is one of the top ones.
Yep.
Yeah. And Honolulu, I forget the figure for Honolulu. Do you have it in front of you?
I don't have it, no.
It was like 350 watts or something. When you've got that much power, you're getting onto the point where you're pushing in the direction of enough power to keep a modest household going modestly.
Yeah.
Double modest, and you're okay.
Well, it's going to happen slowly, but a lot of people are going to be turning into solar just to lower their electric bills.
Oh, yes, that's true. Okay, should we move on, Tom?
Yeah, we got a picture of a Danish offshore wind farm here.
Is that what that is?
That's what that is.
Oh, okay.
And this is an interesting article. What will coronavirus do to renewable energy?
This is from the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, believe it or not. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, renewable energy was growing, but not fast enough to meet the Paris Agreement's carbon reduction goals, let alone to deal with climate change. Now, the economic shock of COVID-19 is slowing the growth of renewables, at least temporarily.
It's just going to be temporary.
It's going to be temporary. The thing that I find interesting about this is I see articles probably on the average, half a dozen of them every day at least, about the future of renewable energy when the pandemic is over. Now, we have no idea when the pandemic is going to be over. We really don't. It could go on for years. We just don't know. hopefully,
nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah, hopefully it won't go that long. We'll have an answer to it, or it'll, like Donald Trump said, it just magically disappear, because things like that can happen. Without speculating on where the pandemic goes, we do have to deal with climate change, and this. The various articles, some of them say renewables are in terrible trouble, and not very many say that.
I don't think that's really accurate.
I don't think it's anywhere near close. Some of them are pointing out that renewables are being installed even with the pandemic going, and that is something I've had interviews for the work that I do for Green Energy Times. I'm just writing an article, in fact, on solar power in a town in Vermont. And the people who are doing the installation say there's no slowdown in their business. And so a lot of the people who are commenting on this say, yeah, coal is slowing down, oil is slowing down, gas is slowing down. Renewables are slowing down a tiny bit, but only a tiny bit. And the orders are not going away.
Well, from the article, quote a sentence, this isn't going to be an easy goodbye. But we're in the long goodbye to fossil fuels.
Yes, well, I think that is the case. So
definitely.
Are we all done with that one?
Yeah, I think so.
So we're up to Tuesday, June 2nd, and we've got a picture of the May 30th SpaceX launch at Clean Technica, and there's a reason why it took a couple of days for this particular article to come out. But what do you got for title, Tom?
SpaceX gets to the International Space Station, but what about doing it with renewable energy?
This is a fascinating article, but I will only suggest it to people who really enjoy math.
Yeah, you're right about that. They do the math right in the article.
Well, Michael Barnard, who is the guy who wrote this article, is a person I've been familiar with for, I don't know, probably 8 years, and he used to work for IBM, and I don't know what he did there. I think he might have been a computer programmer, but he dropped out of IBM and just went into writing about renewable energy and energy in general, and he's a really successful writer. He's got articles in the New York Times and Forbes and you name it, but he's really big on numbers, and
well, he does the math in the article, and it comes out.
Yeah. Okay, I should read the synopsis, shouldn't I? SpaceX,
I think so.
NASA launched 2 astronauts to the International Space Station on the SpaceX Crew Dragon. These SpaceX modules are called Dragons, and there's a Crew Dragon and a I forget what the other one is called, but it's for moving items around. Calculations show that we could turn water into rocket fuel sufficient for a shuttle launch using a month's wind power from a small wind farm at a cost of about $285,000.
That's about 8 turbines he's talking about.
Yes, it's not big. But the thing that's interesting about this is if you compare it to the cost of the fuel that's going into the launch anyway, which is
$450 million.
Yeah, but this is not saving money to have it done from a wind farm, but it is basically a similar cost.
Well, I think the point of it is it's about spending money.
It's about spending money and making waste, both.
Yeah.
If you're going to make hydrogen and oxygen by electrolysis and fuel it with coal, you're going to have a space launch that is expensive in terms of its carbon footprint. But if it's going to be fueled by wind, that makes it a very different thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the hydrogen oxygen combination, which burns into water.
That's what rocket fuel is.
Yeah, that's rocket fuel. It's one of a bunch of different things that can be rocket fuel. I remember hydrazine and nitric acid being combined. That's an interesting combination.
Doesn't sound good.
No. Hydrazine, most people are unfamiliar with hydrazine. But hydrazine, you get a drop of that on your arm, it hurts like you've been stung like with a bee. Just
okay.
A drop.
I don't know this stuff.
Well, if you get a drop of hydrazine onto a drop of nitric acid, that's going to do a little bit worse than a sting by a bee, because hydrazine is a very powerful base, where nitric acid is a very powerful acid. But nitric acid is an oxidizer, and hydrazine is a deoxidizer. What do they call those?
Off the top of my head, I can't think.
I don't remember, but it's a strong reducing agent, and all of a sudden you've got two things there. The molecules, they really want to react, and so all you have to do is feed the two together. You don't have to light anything. It just produces power. But they're both pretty nasty to deal with.
Sounds like it to me. Just the name hydrazine alone scares me.
Have you ever dealt with formic acid?
No, I haven't.
Formic acid.
Sounds like ants.
It is ants. It was an acid that was first identified by fractionally distilling ants.
Okay.
And the story there is, and I got this from a guy who had a doctorate in pharmaceutical chemistry, formic acid is the only antacid that's acid.
Huh? Oh, okay, I get it. It's a pun.
Well, maybe we should escape from that humor.
Yeah, let's move on before somebody recognizes what we just said.
Okay.
A plunging cost of wind and solar marks a turning point in energy transition.
This is the picture of a wind farm in France, and the item is from Reuters, and it says...
I've seen that picture before.
I'm sure. You know, there's, in fact, I think there's another picture farther down in this broadcast that is a reuse of one that we had a couple of months ago. I don't like doing that, but sometimes, you know, particularly when I'm in a hurry in the morning, I just let one slip by.
Well, I've seen the picture, but you had nothing to do with it.
Aha. Plunging costs of renewables mark a turning point in a global transition to low-carbon energy, as it is increasingly cheaper to build solar and wind farms than to run existing coal plants, a report from the International Renewable Energy Agency shows. Now,
well, that's what we've been saying all along.
That we talked about that earlier in the show.
Absolutely.
So, there you have it.
Well, scientists still say the world needs to stage a much faster transition to mitigate the worst impacts of climate change.
The transition that we have to do has to be as fast as the reduction that we've had in fuel use from the COVID-19 pandemic, but it has to happen every year like that.
I guess that's a good way of looking at it, and
it sounds scary until you realize how much money it's going to save us all.
Well, just using renewables from this article, the world could save up to $23 billion a year.
Yeah.
Just using renewables.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's the economics, stupid.
It's the economics. We should move on, Tom. It is.
Yeah, I think we should. We got a picture of a natural gas pipeline here.
A rather small one, I think. This is from Huffington Post, which is also called HuffPost. What do you got for a title?
The EPA mounts a new strike on states' rights, this time to boost pipeline companies. A little politics going on here.
People should pay attention to this. You know, if you think about this from a conservative point of view, the conservatives talk about states' rights. And
that's the whole point.
Yep, and what they are doing is they're saying the states' rights have to be held back. So this is not a conservative EPA. This is a Trump EPA. And it's the synopsis says, as chaos grips the nation, the EPA is changing water permitting rules to make it harder for states to block construction of fossil fuel pipelines. The EPA's new rule prohibits regulators from factoring in a project's impact on climate change. And, you know, this is mind-boggling.
How can they do such a thing?
The EPA is doing this? This is the Environmental Protection Agency?
Yeah. Well, they're protecting the environment, but not for people like us, but more for the people who own the oil.
Yes, that's right. And this is also another violation of conservative tenets, because what they're doing is they're picking the winners and losers. And in this particular case, they're picking the winners despite the fact that the winners are losers. And so, you know what I think about when I see this? I think the United States, particularly if you compare it with other countries and what they're doing, like China, where 98% of the world's electric buses are made, and they have taken over more than half of the bus market worldwide because of that. The United States is acting like it's in a race of chariots that are drawn by 4 horses each, and in the case of the American chariot, it isn't really a chariot, it's really a farm wagon, and it's drawn by 3 horses, 4 horses, 3 of which are lame, and the 4th one is dead. I don't think we're going to lose.
Yeah, we get the last day of the show, Wednesday, June 3rd. That's yesterday, isn't it?
It sure is.
There's a picture of a Indian guy called Gautam Adani, and he's an interesting guy.
He is an interesting guy, and he's the chairman of the Adani Group. And I wonder if that's a coincidence, do you think, Tom, or is maybe he...
That's just the luck of the draw.
That's the luck of the draw. Okay, this is from PV Magazine Australia. What do you got for a title?
Adani chief talks solar and hydrogen storage opportunity. This guy, he knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing. And this is, is over and over again. We're hearing the word hydrogen more often than we're hearing, a lot of words that you would think people would talk about. But hydrogen is getting really important.
Here is this guy's from India.
Yeah.
And he's competing worldwide.
He's competing worldwide. That's right. In a market that the United States could be in, but is it in? Not the way he is. COVID-19 presents an opportunity to pause, rethink, and design a faster transition to clean energy future, according to Adani Group Chairman Gautam Adani. He pointed to a 99% drop in the cost of solar modules over a 40-year period, and he said he expects this trend to continue.
That's another 99% drop he's talking about.
Which means that you're taking the price of solar power down to, well, right now...
almost nothing.
Oh, very close to nothing. So what do you got? You got solar panels that cost almost nothing. You got electricity that costs almost nothing. You've got marginal costs that are almost nothing. You've got electricity that you could give away for free.
And still make money.
How do you do that?
Well, I think that's going to be the trend. The power companies are going to charge for the wires, not for the power.
They're going to charge. You know what I think they're going to charge most for it is use of software.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
Yeah. And
well, this guy's goal is to become the world's largest solar power company by 2025. That's coming up pretty soon.
It is.
And the largest renewables company by 2030. So he's got big ideas.
He's got big ideas. He surely does. And, I don't know. It makes me sad to think of what the American potential is, and the fact that in the pursuit of making America great again, we've been pushing obsolete technology. It's just not going to fit. Okay. Should we move out of that?
Yeah, we got a picture of a bunch of tankers just sitting idle. Oh, we've talked about this. They're doing nothing but storing oil.
Yep, and we've actually used that picture before. It's the picture that I referred to earlier. This is from Clean Technica.
The oil and gas industry doesn't have a bright future. This is a very good article, by the way.
Yes, it is.
A lot of oil and gas, but it's a good article.
The oil and gas industry has been in a recession, effectively, since the global financial crisis 11 years ago. Each year, production volumes have increased by more than global demand. So the production is going up faster than demand is, meaning that the market has been in decline, with lower prices for crude oil and natural gas the natural result. And you want to know why, Russia and Saudi Arabia are angry at the United States? It has something to do with the fact that we're producing oil at below cost and dumping it on the world market through fracking. And, this
basically, yes. I mean, it's costing us more to frack it than we can sell it for.
Yeah. And we're not doing it we're not doing it we are doing it as a national policy, but it's being done in a way that I think is reminiscent of Ponzi schemes.
Yeah, I think you're right. But it's not going to last very long.
No, I don't think it's going to last very long. I think the majority of gas and oil companies in this country are probably going to go broke this year.
Well, the little guys are anyhow.
Yeah.
I mean, the Exxon Mobils they got so much in reserve, they're not going to go broke. But a lot of little guys are going to be right out of business.
They're going to be out of business, and this is something that that is an industry that we've talked about this, where the CEO of one of the companies was saying that it was the worst investment you could make was investing in fracking companies. Almost all of them.
They're not coming anywhere near their potential or their predictions.
Well, the overwhelming majority of them apparently go bankrupt, and when they go bankrupt, the stockholders get nothing out of the bankruptcy. So, our last picture has solar and wind power.
In the same picture.
Same picture?
That's right. It's the same location, isn't it? Or is it a composite?
I don't know. Anyway, this is from The Guardian.
UK electricity, coal-free for the first month ever.
The UK's electric system had its greenest month ever and ran without coal-fired electricity for the full month of May. National Grid, the energy system operator, said the UK's sunniest spring on record helped reduce the carbon intensity of the grid to its lowest level ever recorded. Now, those are two different statements. The fact that it's coal-free doesn't automatically make it the lowest carbon intensity, because you can.
No, it's connected, but you're right. It's not absolute.
You can get it. You can get the electricity from natural gas,
and that's got carbon in it.
And it's got carbon in it. But in this case, the natural gas is suffering too. And
this is interesting because, according to the article, the UK's electricity system is run without coal-fired power for 54 consecutive days, and that was when they wrote this.
Yes.
So it's probably up over 2 months already.
Yes, probably. I mean, I don't know what the weather is out there now. I was living in Devon through a period that they called a drought, and I got to tell you, that countryside was gloriously green during a drought.
Was it, huh?
Yeah, the thing that made it a drought was the fact that the sky was blue.
It doesn't happen much in England, does it?
It happens, but this was a beautiful, beautiful deep blue sky. Devon is fortunate at there's not anything really west of it that produces much in the way of haze or whatever. So there's no factories. I shouldn't say no factories. There's not a lot of factories in Cornwall.
Okay.
But whenever I think of Devon, I think of the 5 countries that make up the UK.
Is it 5?
5.
Okay.
England, Scotland, Wales, North Ireland, and Cornwall.
Well, Cornwall, they considered. Well, it was another country at one time, wasn't it?
As far as you're concerned, it still is.
They got a different accent down there.
They have a different well, they've got they're.
Well, talk like Long John Silver.
Yeah. Anyway, Tom, I think we've got through our articles for the week, and we happen to have finished just at about the end of an hour.
Well, there's a takeaway from that article. It says record low demand for electricity during the coronavirus lockdown has left little room for the UK's last remaining coal power plants to play a role.
Yes. They were operating all that time at a zero capacity factor.
Yep.
How about that? Well,
they're not coming back.
What?
They're not coming back.
No, they're not coming back. They were scheduled to close down in Britain, I think, in 2025, but they're not going to last that long.
No.
Anyway, there is the show, And everybody who's been paying attention knows as much as we do. So I guess we'll just say bye at that point.
Well, usually you got a nice little aphorism to say for us. What is it this week?
I forgot to put one up. You know, as I said last time, bald, overweight, and befuddled. Goodbye, everybody, and come back next week.
It's been real.
Bye-bye.
Adios.